Alright, so I have two different choices for ground cover materials here. I have what are called coarse cinders. Usually that would be like coal ash or something like that. In this case, I could use it as a ground cover if I wanted to, although I'm still leaning actually towards the sand because it might give actually kind of a cool gravel effect. So obviously you saw me sifting the sand out a little bit earlier. So in a very crude manner, what I'm pretty much going to do is not over the whole thing, but in spots, just come along and just sprinkle it out, and then come along with a paintbrush and sweep it in there. Then what I'll do is I'll come along and lock it down in place with some white glue and water that's been diluted, along with a little bit of dishwashing soap just to allow it to flow better. So here I've been kind of experimenting with effects for the surface here. I'm still not fully sure if I'm going to do it as a, what was I going to say? Still not fully sure if I'm going to do it as concrete or asphalt or something like that. To be determined. I also need to work on installing the switch stand here. I think it'll probably go on this side though for clearance reasons. So that's the reason why I left the gap, is so I can get in there, unsolder the throw bar, and move it. But let me work on getting this set up and we'll go from there. Alright, so sorry if the lighting's pretty bad and this might be a little shaky, but here's how I go about putting the sand right next to the building. So I'm going to use my very high-tech, it's not a scoop, but I really don't care, spatula here, and I'm just going to scoop out a small amount. I do not need very much, and I'm dead serious when I say that. Does not need much at all. And I'm just going to lightly sprinkle it on there. It does not need to be perfect, because the reality is obviously people would be walking there and things like that. And then we're going to take my bottle here, I don't know what it is, and the nice thing about these bottles is you can easily shake things up, and you can also just kind of drip it out, so you can see how the water and glue mixture just floats on there. That's because it has the dishwashing soap in there to help cut the surface tension, but it works really good. Now the blue tape around the building is there to act kind of like a mold release. This is the quote concrete version of the building. You can also tell that I need to trim the gap right there, but the idea is I can pull the building in and out as needed, which is good. Now for the roof, I'm thinking it will probably be an asphalt one, so I'm thinking I might actually use the cinders for that, and I might, I'm still figuring it out, I might do ballast over here a different color, just because we're going to have a view block here of some kind to kind of, you know, give us some interest visually. Still figuring out what we're going to do here for the track in the street, but I'm definitely going to cut some wood or something to fill the gap in there, but we're gonna figure that out as we go. The main thing is right now is just getting the loose ground cover in place. I'm debating putting a fake building right here to help kind of break up the seam, but I'm really not sure about that. I might just leave it a gravel lot and figure that out. I still also need to install these little ground throws here, so what I need to do is figure out, it looks like the post size on there is just about the size of the PC board, which is a little bit of concern. So what I'm thinking I might do is dig out or make some little brass pieces that just get soldered to the PC tie that have this that just drops in, and then as you move this, it moves the arm, and then that will positively, hopefully, move the switch either way and make things happen. I need to do the same over here. Instead of having the switch down there, I'm going to set it up there, obviously, so I need to adjust that. Like I've said before, what I've also done is I've decided to come along and put 2 coats of glue on this so it stays really, really strong. As you can tell, I've primed this up. And we also need to come along and install the breakwater there along the edge. We still need to add the fascia boards for the sides, but I promise this is coming along. It is getting there. Now, the other thing I need to do is come along, and I'm hoping that once the ballast is dried, everything will stay in place more. Then I can come along and electrically gap things as needed. I still need to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm thinking it's probably going to be easier for me to just come along and make this layout what's called dead rail, no track power, and just run all the equipment. If I'm going to do any running shots, just maybe run like some little wires behind the locomotive hooked directly to the motor or something like that, cheat like that. But for actual operations on here, the way it's going to work is the tracks themselves, like these tracks, probably not the switch, these tracks, not the switch, this track, not the switch, and this track will all have just basic DC power running to them at a constant voltage. Then inside the locomotive will be, I'm going to cover this in a different video, will be a Zener diode along with a couple of other things like a bridge rectifier and capacitors, so it can run through the dead track sections just fine with the capacitor bank on board acting like a battery, but I don't have to deal with batteries and charging and switches and things like that, because the idea is hopefully I can take this stuff and run it on a DCC layout, which has about 12 to 15 volts continuous running to the rails. I can drop it on there as well. So I'm figuring it all out as I go, obviously, but I'm really, really happy with how this is coming out so far.